morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on what's new in Revit 2019. My name is Louis Chabarro. I am with Microsol Resources. My many years of experience and in-depth background in Autodesk Revit, AutoCAD, and Autodesk Navisworks modeling software only adds to my ability to drive into a new and inventive 3D realm. Now, with that, I'd like to welcome you to what's new in Revit 2019. First up, we're going to talk quickly about strengthening, modernizing, automating, connecting, and creating and informing. Here's a quick little bullet point or summary of what's going to be covered during today's presentation. Some of these components are just going to be talked about. Some other ones I'm going to be demonstrating for everyone. First up is the modernization of Revit's tab views. Now, a much long-awaited feature has been incorporated in Revit 2019. This new feature allows us to be able to take individual views and pull them off of the main Revit browser and drag them onto multiple monitors. Whether you're using one monitor, two monitors, or three monitors, now you can actually take all those views, and instead of toggling through them, you can you'll be able to look at these views on multiple monitors. One of the cool little things that I happen to really enjoy very much about this new functionality is the icons, the descriptions, also of the tabs, which makes it a lot easier to be able to look at what we're seeing when we've got many different views open to us. We also have the ability to toggle, to tile these views and these displays. MultiMonitor Support has been improved. Again, we can drag these views onto multiple monitors, giving us a more comprehensive view into our models and to be able to look at them in a much more interactive manner. Next, we're going to take a quick look at the new improvements in levels in 3D views. We're able to view 3D orthographic views, also as well as modify, delete, and adjust. In this particular view here, if you happen to have open an older model and you notice that the levels are not displayed, just select that window that has that 3D view, type in VG, go to your annotation catalog tab, scroll down, select levels, apply, and then select OK, and then you'll be able to see that these tabs are now, these levels are now displayed. Once in this view, you can also select a level, and during the life of a project, if you find that it's getting, the footprint is getting bigger or smaller, you do have the ability via these grip handles to be able to adjust those levels, make them bigger or smaller. Just a much more interactive working with the model. Next, talk quickly about the improvements to the material library within Revit 2019. Now in this version, Revit has the ability to create a higher quality rendering with a collection of physically based appearance assets that take advantage of the physically based Autodesk ray tracing rendering engine within Revit. These assets provide higher quality, realistic visual effects in rendering images and in views that use the realistic or ray tracing visual engine. One of the things you may notice that when you're taking an older Revit project and you're migrating it into Revit 2019 and you pull up your material appearance asset browser, you may notice that there are little icons of the assets that have a orange triangle in the bottom left-hand corner. That basically is a visual cue to you to tell you that that asset is a legacy asset that's being brought over or migrated into Revit 2019. You can take these legacy assets and modify them so they can take advantage of the new functionality within the materials appearance as well as the ray tracing. While not all assets in the provided library use the physical-based appearance, a large collection is provided within Revit 2019. So you can make that transition over. Quick little summary, replacing legacy assets with the new assets to improve the quality of views and rendering is pretty easy and straightforward. Doesn't really require too much effort. Next, we're going to move into improved perspective views and how it's much easier to remove the cropped view of that image that you're looking at. Just going to quickly take a moment here just to toggle back into Revit. In this view here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a camera right here. Take a quick look at what that looks like. As you can tell, in this particular window here, we have the cropped area. Just go to Properties, remove the check mark next to that, and let me just switch to a better view. So this way it's a little easier for everybody to see. As you can see here, now we have a nice, very fluid, realistic view of what this interior space is going to look like. And also now we have the ability to do a quick little render. So if we just happen to select consistent colors, as you can see here, much easier now to create nice perspective views of your models. You also have shade ability to look at that model. Panning and zooming is very, very fluid. So all in all, I happen to think that this is one of the nicest little features within Revit 2019 that's now available. Just makes the experience of looking at that space much, much, much more interactive. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the scope boxes. Scope box improvements have been made more consistent. They work much more fluid and are connected a lot easier. Here, it's a lot easier now to be able to grab a scope box that's been associated with a view and to be able to make quick adjustments to that 3D box. So by grabbing the grip handles, you'll be able to make more interactive changes to those 3D views that you're looking at. So in this particular feature, now when you're adjusting a scope box, your 3D box is also modified at the same time, lending it to a better interactive experience when working in 3D views. I happen to think this is probably one of the best features in here because depending on how you use your scope box and how you assign them, you're able to take a very, very large model and break it up into smaller pieces and to be able to see what's going on in that particular area. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about functionality within Revit 2018 that has been strengthened. Filters now allow you to query your model for information based on one or more user-defined criteria. Filters are structured such that the resulting yields yes or no answers. In situations where you want to create a more complex query, you can string together more than one question. With Revit 2019, you can use OR conditions in addition to an AND condition when creating view filters that identify elements based on parameter values, creating multiple rules and rule sets and nesting rules sets to help get the desired results from the model. This improvement enables you to define complex, sophisticated rules that identify elements based on categories and parameter values. Apply these filters to views to change the visibility or graphic displays of the identifying elements. So whether you're working on a large project or a small project, being able to get to the information within these models has definitely gotten a lot easier with this new functionality within Revit as far as being able to query the model. Next, we'll talk quickly about the new features within hatching. Now you have the ability to be able to use double fill patterns. So for a case and example, concrete, now you can just take the concrete stippling pattern, and you can also layer on top of it as a background a color. So if you want it to be a much more realistic, more true hatch, you can take it and make it gray and make it look like concrete. I think this is going to be an amazing functionality to be added to Revit 2019, because now may not have to do so much manipulation of elements within Revit to get it to look the right way. Vertical text alignment has also been improved. Now, when it comes to aligning text, you have the ability to take a box and grab it by the handle. And if you notice very carefully, there's a little dotted line or a dashed line that shows the alignment. So in this particular case, if I wanted to align this text to that body of text, now I have that ability to do that, making it a lot simpler and a lot easier to be able to move text boxes around. So in here, you can also see there's also a horizontal alignment, which makes it, again, easy to be able to align the text in a notes sheet, both horizontally and vertically. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the ease at which now it's possible to rename views within the project browser, as well as probably one of the best enhancements that's been done to Revit 2019, and that is the ability to be able to see what happens, or to get a confirmation about what happens when you delete a level. In this particular model, I have it set up so we have 3 different views that we are able to look at the model and see what happens. In this one, again, kind of getting back to what I was discussing about before, if you open up a previous model and you don't see that levels are displayed, all you'd have to do is just type in VG, go to your annotate categories, make sure levels is enabled. And then in this particular case, if there was a level that you found that needed to be renamed, simple little click now allows you to change it real quick. There's also, you can go into the browser, slow click allows you to change the name of that level. Very easy, very simple. Talk a little real quick about what happens when you delete a level. So I'm going to show you 2 different ones. We're going to do the one at the 3rd floor and then one at the 1st floor. So with this one, you select the level. If you hit the delete button, now Revit gives you a very, very comprehensive warning dialog box about everything that's going to be impacted by deleting this level, as well as what I think is just fantastic, and that is it highlights all the elements in the model that is going to be affected by the deletion of that level. So in this particular case, let's select the 1st floor because I have an entry-level view of the model as well. Hit the delete button. And now you can actually see how it would impact. The deletion of that level would impact the 1st floor. So I think this is a tremendous tool, especially for the new Revit folks that we have coming on board, where it can show them the impact of what would happen if we delete that level. In this particular case, on the 1st floor, it would delete curtain wall, it would delete slabs, it would delete walls, it would delete everything. So this is a tremendous visual cue, and I think it's probably, other than being able to use multiple monitors and pulling tabs off, tremendous, tremendous tool. Also, for the CAD managers out there, what I've included is a little bit of a tidbit. So if you go to delete that level, right? Oh, sorry, that's not what I want to do. If I want to rename this, level, I'm just going to put test at the end. I get prompted with a confirmation dialog box asking me if I want to confirm the renaming of this level. With this version of Revit, we now have the ability to place a check mark next to the do not show this message again. However, there may be situations where you really do want this message box to show up. If you find that someone has put a check mark in that box and to tell them, please don't notify me of this change in the future, in this particular case, I'm going to hit no. So I'm going to toggle back to my presentation. If you look in this particular area here, what I did is I actually went through the process of renaming that level, and then I had Revit write to the INI file to show me where the command is to be able to suppress that dialog box. So you have an end user, dialog box is suppressed. You want to not have it suppressed. What you need to do is you just go to that user's INI file, find the message that confirms the renaming of that level, and then just remove that from the INI file. When you do that, you will have to shut down Revit and restart it up in order for the dialog box to appear. One of the tools that we use here is we use No++ as the tool, as the text editor to be able to show us where that entry is made. Lots of functionality, some really good stuff here. Again, renaming the views with a slow double click, very, very easy. Being able to suppress dialog boxes when renaming views, very, very easy. However, it can create, a situation where you don't want that dialog box to be suppressed all the time. And then very, very tremendous tool is the warning when levels are being deleted and the impact that it's going to have on the model when that does happen. Another small but really big improvement or enhancement to Revit 2019 is the ability to be able to select both an RVT file and an RFA file and have Revit open dialog box tell us what version that those files were created in. Great for anybody who has to maintain older files, because now you don't necessarily have to, or better yet, or having a novice Revit user open up a file that was created in a previous version, and now what's happening is they've actually upgraded the model to a newer version and saved it, which then means we'd have to go back to a backup. So let me just give you a quick little demonstration on how that works. Simple little tool, but I think it has tremendous value. Here, what I have is I have a couple of different examples: a rail system, an old house that was created in Revit 2017. As you can see, it gives me a little icon, and then it tells me which version of Revit it was created in. Next, we'll move on to create. Now we have the ability to be able to dimension on a curve. No longer do we have to create all kinds of different ways of being able to do that. As you can see here, I have a curved walkway path. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a simple little string of dimensions right where that building section happens. Select the component, select a line. I can select that edge, give a dimension that way. Select that edge and give it that dimension as well. Very easy, very simple to do. I think this is a fantastic addition to Revit 2019. Next, quickly going to demonstrate a new functionality or enhancement to being able to split railings. In the past, splitting a railing required a tremendous amount of work. Here now, it's actually been made a lot simpler. I have a few different examples on how to be able to use that functionality. Let's start with this one right here. This is a simple handrail glass panel with brackets. Select the Modify tool, the tab. Then here we can select the split element. And if you look closely in this area here, right now I have a check mark next to delete the inserted element. I can select a piece here, select piece here, and it splits the railing. And then the end condition for the rail here is the same condition for the rail here. And if you notice in this example, right, the end condition is here, looks like this. Same thing happens here. The end condition also mimics what's on the other side. I'm just going to back up a little bit. You also have the ability, when modifying and splitting a rail, to remove the check mark next to delete the inserted segment. I could select that component here, select that component here. Then if I want, I can actually select that element and change it to something totally different. In this particular case, crazy, so I can hit cancel, go back, I can select it again, and then change it to maybe something like that, or something like that, or something like that. Or something like that. So if you find yourself in situations where you have to make quick modifications to your railing systems, much easier to be able to do that. One thing though I found that is a little odd with this, and I just want to throw this out there as a caveat or need to know, is if you have, this is a guardrail example with a handrail on it. If you use the same process, right, and you select it, Revit's actually going to tell, it's going to give you a warning. And I think it's just because of the way this guardrail handrail is built. So in those situations, you may not want to use this functionality. You may have to do it manually. However, in a situation like this one, we can go ahead and modify it, and you get these kind of odd conditions. However, you can also then go ahead and take that component and delete it, and to be able to then create a handrail that looks like this. So if you need to have an opening between two places, a lot simpler to be able to modify handrails. Here's another example. With this one, I'm just going to split this one. And then if I don't like it, I can delete it. Now let's move on to the steel portion of the what's new in Revit 2019. Here we have new editing tools to more easily modify structural frame and column elements and apply custom parameters, cuts to better accommodate the geometry of elements at a connection. Steel components like plates, bolts, anchors, steel studs, and welds can be placed in the 3D model to connect structural members together. Columns and custom conditions have access to comprehensive libraries, 125 parameter connections, which help speed up modeling steel connections with a higher level of detail in Revit, in the Revit environment. Documentation with steel details. You can now use a set of dedicated tools to create more accurate and detailed engineering drawings where steel connections are represented more accurately. These structural drawings are easily created completely with dimensions, tags, and schedules. You can get a better understanding of elevations of steel components with more accurate schedule automatically generated out of the 3D model. Freeform rebar shape matching. To improve scheduling and annotation of rebars in your documentation, Freeform Rebar now either matches existing rebars with shape families or creates new rebar families. from rebar geometry. This is done for each bar in the set individually and allows extraction of fabrication data like individual bar segments, lengths, and bolts. Talk a little bit about automation. Slabs now are part of the precast automated process, following similar configuration rules and workflows as other existing types of precast elements available in structural precast extensions or Revit. Automation, API for precast automation. Revit dedicated APIs allow configuration of modeling such as segments or reinforced rules, position of lifts and connectors, also documentation. Connection, being able to import-export data from either an IFC file or from a Rhino element the interoperability has been strengthened. Inform, move a little bit into MEP, parallel pump sets. In prior releases, users had to know a lot about how to configure connections and understand where to input data from common scenarios where pumps are defined. One couldn't just drop a pump in. Now we are in the input information that associates with the flow factor properties of connectors. Complex piping networks. Revit 2019 has improved to the primary, secondary hydronic networks, which enable much more complete piping networks. Revit has support for head systems, hydronic bridges, as well as one pipe primary loops. And that concludes today's Revit 2019 presentation.